Welcome back to Season 3 of the Animal Highlight that's focused on animals and biosecurity and was extracted from the Animal Turn podcast focused on the same theme. This season has been sponsored by Animals in Philosophy, Politics, Law and Ethics, A.P.P.L.E, as well as the Biosecurities and Urban Governance Research Collective. I'm joined with a co-host, Amanda Bunten-Walberg, who, at the time of recording, was a PhD candidate at Queen's University School of Environmental Studies. Her research explored more than human ethics in contagious contexts through the case study of bats and COVID-19. Mandy is particularly interested in how more than human ethics, critical race theory, queer theory, and biopolitical theory might guide humans towards developing more ethical relationships with animals, particularly those who are understood as diseased. In this episode, Amanda tells us all about crabs. Hi, Mandy. Welcome back to the Animal Highlight. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have in store for us today. So what are we going to be speaking about?
So today I'm really excited to talk about crabs. And the reason I want to talk about them, or I arrived at thinking about them in the context of this show and this week, is that the green crab, or the European green crab, is listed on the Global Invasive Species Database as one of the world's 100 worst invasive alien species. And the Nature Conservancy Canada refers to the green crab as, quote, an aggressively invasive alien species in most of the regions it inhabits. And this kind of language is just so condemning, and it really reflects the dominant understanding of so-called invasive species as these malicious invaders who don't belong and who need to be eradicated. And I really think that green crabs deserve more respectful attention, and that's why I wanted to highlight them as well as crabs more broadly this week. So crabs are these incredible creatures. They have these protective exoskeletons, segmented bodies, 10 legs including claws, and these stalked eyes. And it's really common for crabs to move in their very memorable sideways scuttle, which is, in my opinion, one of their most charming features. Notably, there's a species of sandy beach ghost crab who's the world record holder among crabs. They can run sideways at 4 meters per second, which is astounding.
What?
I know. I can't even run frontways that fast. And I'm a lot bigger.
4 meters per second?
Yeah, absolutely astounding. And think of all the coordination among their legs that requires too. It's just so cool. So crabs grow through this process called molting. And this is a process where, at least once they're adults, they absorb much of their exoskeleton's calcium actually into their soft tissues until it weakens and cracks. And then they're able to crawl out of the crack in their old exoskeleton and rest while a new one forms. And this is a really vulnerable and dramatic, but also crucial transition for crabs. And another important trait among crabs that I feel it's really important to highlight is their ability to feel pain. So, contrary to popular belief, which allows for the horrifying practices of, for example, boiling them alive, biologists are continually gathering evidence that crabs can and do feel pain, as well as a lot of other things. So, yeah, they are feeling sensory creatures. Now, as with many of the other animals who I discuss in these highlights, crabs are astoundingly diverse. There's more than 7,000 crab species worldwide. There's also lots of species who are crab-like, but aren't technically true crabs, even though we commonly refer to them as crabs. So horseshoe crabs, for example, would fall into this category. And crabs thrive in an astounding range of environments. It's really mind-boggling. The marine taxonomist and ecologist Peter Davey describes crabs who can live 4,000 meters deep on the near-freezing, pitch-black ocean floor, There's crabs then on the other end of the spectrum who thrive in mountain forests that are 2,000 meters above sea level. There's crabs who can live on hot sulfuric hydrothermal vents. And there's also crabs who, I really like these ones, who spend their whole life cycle living in these small pools of water collected in tree holes. There's even crabs who hibernate in these deep clay burrows in the desert and can wait 6 or more years for rain to fall, which then enables them to leave hibernation and resume their life. So just an astounding array of environmental difference. They also physically and behaviorally exhibit remarkable difference. So the Japanese spider crab is the largest among the crabs. They have these shockingly really like long, lanky legs. They can weigh up to 42 pounds and they can live a century long. I can't imagine what perspective they must have being so long lived. In the wonderful book Crab, the author Cynthia Criss offers an account of another of my favorites, decorator crabs, who are a group of crab species who use materials in their environment, likely for the purpose of camouflaging from predators, though we're not sure of that. And so these crabs will maintain gardens of live plants and animals on their shells. So, for example, there might be algae or sea sponges. And Criss also describes, again, another of my favorites, the unique boxer or pom-pom crab, who they carry tiny anemones in their claws at all times. And it kind of looks like they're wearing a pair of boxing gloves or carrying pom-poms. And the anemones get to reach new food sources that they might not otherwise be able to reach. And then in exchange, the boxer crabs will eat a portion, and often a very large portion, of the food that the anemones collect. And they've even been known to actually starve the anemones to keep them from growing to unruly sizes. And then one of my favorite facts about this relationship is that the crabs will also brandish the stinging anemones as sort of defensive weapons in the presence of predators. So just this really fascinating relationship that they have with other species and their environment. Crabs also have really fascinating relationships with each other. They have a lot to say. They're very communicative. Fiddler crabs, for example, will communicate through wrapping their large claw on the ground or moving their legs up and down. There's one species of ghost crab who makes these rasping sounds from their stomach to communicate, which is so cool. Some species of crabs will actually migrate and congregate in these absolutely massive communities so that they can communally molt or maybe breed or spawn. And I'll send you a link to some videos of this to share with the viewers. There's the Christmas Island red crabs who famously shut down entire roadways during their migration to gather and breed and spawn in the millions. It's totally a spectacle to watch. And it just makes me wonder, what is this like for them? Does it feel like going to a big music festival, or maybe attending a family gathering, or probably none of the above? And I want to close by returning to green crabs, who I began this highlight with. They have exceptionally good memories, and they're really quick learners when finding food in new locations or new foods. They also have a high tolerance compared to other crabs for dealing with changes in salinity, changes in temperature, changes in their diet. And it's these characteristics that are actually what help them to be successful in so many environments that they aren't native to. So that brings us to the end. Crabs are utterly remarkable, and I really, really enjoyed researching them. I hope you enjoyed listening.
Thank you so much. So green crabs, you started out saying that they're invasive and aggressively invasive. So where do green crabs actually, where do they originate from, and what regions are they kind of considered to be invasive in?
I'm actually blanking right now on where they're from, but they sort of catch rides in the ballast water of traveling ships, and they are now living, I think, in most coastal areas. Although don't quote me on that. I'll have to verify that. But they eat a lot of sort of native flora, that native marine flora that really is the sort of base or bedrock for entire ecosystems. So they're seen as these just destructive kind of invaders who, destroy the status quo of environmental
stability. Yeah. I mean, it's always hard to kind of talk and think about invasive species because they do have impacts on a variety, and I say in scare quotes, right, invasive species, because they do have impacts on local environments. But we ourselves are a very adaptable kind of animal, and it's how you think about those that are not as adaptable in connection with those who are adaptable, and what the implications are. And it's never easy, right? But thank you so much. Like, learning about crabs, really, I had no idea, kind of the idea that crabs have gardens on their backgrounds and they're carrying anemones. And what was that going? How many meters sideways? 6 meters?
Let me double check. I think it's 4 meters in 1 second.
4 meters in a second sideways, which is...
4 meters per second.
That's impressive, to say the least. Well, thank you so much for bringing us the highlights and teaching us a little bit about why crabs are amazing. So thank you. Thank you to Animals in Philosophy, Politics, Law and Ethics, A.P.P.L.E, as well as the Biosecurities and Urban Governance Research Collective for sponsoring Season 5 of the Animal Turn podcast, where this content was extracted from. Thank you also goes to Amanda Bunten-Walberg for being an incredible co-host, and to Rebecca Shen for doing and designing the episode and podcast artwork. This episode was edited by Christiaan Mentz and produced by myself. Just a reminder to please rate and review this podcast wherever you listen. This is The Animal Highlight with me, Claudia Hirtenfelder.